shut my cell phone down here.
Okay. I should start?
No, I'll tell you in a second.
Okay, good evening. Special thank you to Moti Zeitlin and Svi Goldring and Nachman Fried, my Rebbe, Reb Chaim Kramer, BRI, and everyone involved in making this happen. Very special thank you to everyone also for being accommodating in changing the time. This is the last of the 3 weeks, I think, that we're doing that. And next week go back to Sunday mornings, 10 o'clock. So we finished the first 7 paragraphs of Torah Daled in the first chelik of Likutim, and now we're going back to the beginning and learning it more be'iyun. So the Torah begins Lashon Rabbeinu Zal. That's always important to pay attention to, because that means we're allowed to do what he says we're allowed to do. We can treat every single word as a pasuk in Chumash, so you can be medayik to your heart's content. That's a huge claim in of itself, and if we're going to take it 100% literal, then Hamevin Yavin, it's very extraordinary. The magnitude of that claim is huge. It's not just being medayik the lashon of a rishon. We're saying we're being medayik the lashon of a pasuk. So that's on par with the dictate of a Kadosh Baruch Hu to Moshe Rabbeinu. Anochi Hashem Elokecha. The Torah begins with a pasuk that nearer the end it's going to tie it all together. But the pasuk itself is huge. Anochi Hashem Elokecha. I am Yud and Hey and Vav and Hey. That's the name of Hashem with Rachamim. Elokecha, your power of powers. I am your constant power of all powers. And the 2 names of Rachamim and Din are in this pasuk already, and that's what this paragraph is going to be paying attention to. Asher Hutziticha. Asher we use to translate as who in this case. Asher we know from Rashi in Perek Daled in Vayikra pasuk Chaf Beis. The Asher is a lashon of Ashrei, so it means Hashem happily Hutziticha took you out of Egypt. He did this with simcha. In the same way we say Asher Kidishanu, it means that Hashem is so to speak Kaviyachol besimcha, that He made us unique, Kadosh, through the mitzvahs that we're doing. Asher Yatsa Es Adam B'Chokhmah. He was happy in creating man with incredible wisdom. So the concept of Asher and Ashrei is something to take very seriously, because it pops up in our liturgy all day long, and for that reason it's to connect to Hashem's, so to speak, simcha in giving us His Torah. So Asher Hatziticha Meretz Mitzrayim, He happily took you out from the land of Egypt, Mibeis Avadim, from the house of slaves. This pasuk we know is the first of the Aseret Dibros. We also know that it's the pasuk that is the makar for all the mitzvahs aseh, and lo yeh lecha Elohim acherim al panai is essentially the, so to speak, shoresh, the root of all the mitzvahs lo ta'aseh. So essentially this pasuk is really the beginning of real creation, because the purpose of creation was for this moment. As we know, Yom HaShishi, the whole purpose of the Bria was to bring us to the 6th day of Sivan, and Hashem giving us the Torah at Har Sinai. Just by way of introduction, we did touch on this, I think, when we did the timeline together, is that if you look through the psukim of the Torah, kaviyachol, as though you're reading Hashem's own autobiography, His own story about Himself, so to speak, then the mashal, which I'm borrowing from Rabbi Victor Miller of blessed memory, is that when you read a biography, then the very way it's laid out is actually telling you, the reader, what the mind of the author wants you to pay attention to. So if he only gives a couple of chapters, let's say, to his childhood, and then 3 chapters to his adolescence, and then 4 chapters to his marriage, and then 25 chapters to his career. So you know that the career really was the most important thing in his life, and anything that was mentioned beforehand was actually only preparation for the last 25 chapters. And if he talks about nothing in those 25 chapters except his career, and any reference to his marriage or adolescent years or childhood is only because it's in the context of the new focus, now you're learning that everything you learned till now was pure Hakdama, introduction to his career. So what's Hashem's career? So as you speed through the psukim, you realize before you get to the end of the first pasuk, you get to the first what I call turning point. A turning point I'm using as a description of a switch of focus. So Bereshis bara Elokim es hashamayim, and now we've mentioned this before, thanks to Hubble and the Webb telescopes, we now know there's over 2 trillion galaxies in the visible universe, of which most of those galaxies are totally empty space. And in between the galaxies, there's space of a magnitude that we cannot really fathom in human terms. So all that is completely ignored before the end of the first pasuk, because now we say v'ha'aretz, and the next pasuk starts v'ha'aretz ha'isa soyu v'vayu, and what you see for the next 30 pasukim is only focused on creation of the world. It's in the very last part of that chapter that Hashem describes the creation of Adam, and from then on, for the next 6 chapters, there's no other discussion. If there's any mention of the trees and landforms or sun, moon, and stars, it's only in the context of humankind. So now we get to Perek Vav, and all of a sudden, one person ends up on the scene of the Torah. His name is Noach, and he's called Ish Tzadik. So you're starting to see a pattern. The entire creation was created for planet Earth. Planet Earth was created for mankind. Mankind was created for who's going to be my tzaddik. Adam blew it, he ate from the tree. Noach blew it, he didn't dump to save mankind. You fast forward, and Hashem wiped out the whole of mankind. It's incredible. He wiped out the tachlis of the whole Bria because we were not doing what he wanted us to do, but there was one person who was. And for that, it's worth saving the whole world, the tzaddik. And that's the lashon of Hashem. Now you fast forward, he wasn't the tzaddik Hashem was looking for, but who was? So you get to end of Perek Yud Aleph, and all of a sudden you've got someone by the name of Avram entering the story, and from this moment onwards, you see no focus in the entire text except for Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, Sarah, Rivka, Rachel, and Leah, and the Shiftei Kar. And this goes on till Shibud Mitzrayim, Yetziat Mitzrayim, and Matan Torah. At Matan Torah, there's a total switch of focus. And that's what this pasuk is indicating. That from this moment onwards, we're right at the beginning of the Torah Dalet, we're starting to learn it Be'iyun, that this first pasuk of the Aseret Dibros is the pasuk that tells us that 1 second before, we were all Avadim, and there were no Jews. There were monotheists, and there were Tzadikim, Hasidim, but there were no Jews. To be a Jew, you had to live a life of a Jew. So Ishmael was not a Jew, and Esau was not a Jew. Most of their progeny were also not Jews. So you had to live a certain lifestyle. But starting at Har Sinai, from this moment onwards, if you're born from a Jewish mother, that's sealed forever. You get a neshama of a Jew that is permanent. It's le'olam. It's a bris olam. So this moment that this pasuk comes into being is to tell us this was the real purpose of creation. Because from now onwards, throughout the rest of the entire Chumash and Nach, Hashem's focus has nothing to do with the rest of mankind. If there are Plishtim and Mitzrim who are mentioned, or Emorites, or any of the 7 nations, it's only in the context of Klal Yisrael. So the only focus from now on is Bnei Yisrael. So the whole tachlis of the Bria came at this moment. So that's number one. And number two is that the pasuk itself is basically saying, you know I am Yud-Kei Vav-Kei Elokecha, your power of all powers, because you experienced me taking you out of Egypt, and you experienced, we went through this already, all the powers in the Bria were powered by one single power. I'm that power. So this is the makor, I think, for why there's no such thing as Yush, because Hashem is basically saying, I took you out of Mitzrayim, there's no Mitzrayim I can't take you out of. Once you know that, there is no such thing as Yush. Yush, despair, giving up hope, is a pure, innocent, human perception of non-reality. It's not real. It's just simply not real. As long as there's a Kadosh Baruch Hu in a person's mind, then it's impossible to fall into Yush. We're going to see that kind of comes out of the Torah in a few moments. So this is the introduction to the Torah. Any questions on this? Kisha Adam Yodea. I'm going to read through the paragraph. It's not a very long paragraph. I'm going to read and type it, and then we're going to go through each word. Kisha'adam yodea, when a person knows, shekol me'oroisav, that everything that happens to him, hem l'tovasoi, are for his benefit, are for his good. Zois ha'bechina, this connection, we've translated the word bechina as a connection. Rav Nachman says his entire sefer is bechinas, meaning they're connections. You can say an aspect of a category.
It's not the aspect.
Yeah, you can use that terminology also. But the understanding of the word chen, which is the two-letter root of bechina, is a connection. It's an invisible connection of what a person is thinking and feeling, and that chen, which say matzachen be'enei adam, is something you can't necessarily quantify, but you pick up on it. And that chen is that the person that you're connecting to is thinking something that's good about you, and therefore feeling that about you, and therefore that affects the way they talk and the way they move their everything. Everything's coming from that. In previous classes, we talked a little bit about panim and pnim, and the panim is really a reflection of what's going on inside. There's a very interesting book called Blink by Malcolm Gladwell. When I quote these books, I'm not suggesting you have to read them, but it's so interesting that you see where science is slowly catching up with hasagas that we've written about for thousands of years. So there's two Jewish researchers, complicated names, Russian names, who are fascinating. They started giving a number to every muscle. There's 46 muscles in the face, and then if you identify the number of possible combinations you can make with 46 different muscles, you're talking about tens and tens of thousands. So they made about 30,000 categorizations, of which 5,000 are the most common movements. And all those combinations, now, they actually, the name of that chapter, I think it's in chapter 6, is mind reading. And in section 3 of that chapter, it's called the naked face. The face is naked in the sense that it reveals what's going on inside you. And therefore their claim is that mind reading is actually a chokhmah, which I found fascinating, because that's exactly what Rabbeinu Zal said 250 years ago. That it's not something you have to have Ruach HaKodesh for, it's an actual chokhmah. The chokhmah is that you can, if you read the movements on the face, you can pick up what the person is thinking. It's a very interesting. So of these two researchers, one of them is a brilliant expert, and he can catch someone lying, being insincere immediately. And then it's a very interesting. So the concept of bechina, chen, is that chen is a connection, and the connection is something that you're thinking or feeling that is shown on the face, or in your body language, or even in the tone of voice, and that is what other people are picking up on. So it's not always visible, it's not always obvious. Rav Nachman, almost always, without exception, I've never really made a count, and that's something that would, just now that I'm speaking about it, would be very interesting to do, to identify every single time he used the word bechina, to see what came before and what's coming next, to see that there really is a connection. And usually what he does is he brings you a proof for this connection. So zois habechina, this connection, meaning when you connect in your mind, that everything that you experience is actually l'toivascha, is for your benefit. Hi me'ein olam haba. This connection that you're making is me'ein olam haba. It's a glimpse of the world to come. K'moshe Kasav, because the pasuk says, B'Hashem ahalel dava. It's a pasuk from Tehillim, Perek Nun Vav, pasuk Yud Aleph. In Hashem, here it's referring to Hashem's name Yud and Hey and Vav and Hey, the name of Hashem's Rachamim. Ahalel dava. I will praise. You can read it either word, or as you look at the Perushim there, it means whatever Hashem decrees, because everything is decreed by Hashem's word. Shehakol niyeh bidvaro is a constant reminder that everything exists, only comes into being because of His word. Baruch she'amar v'haya olam, Baruch oimer v'oiseh. So everything exists because Hashem says so. When He says so, He's saying it in Lashon HaKodesh. Lashon HaKodesh is made up of the oishes of the Aleph base. So it's the Aleph base which is inside everything in the physical universe, everything, to the lowest atom and whatever science might find beyond the atom. It's all oisius. The oisius are manifest in what's called nitzotzos. But the nitzotzos are actually, if you want to call it, they are sourced in the oisius of Hashem. We've looked a little bit about that in the previous Torah. So David HaMelech is saying, when I experience Hashem as Yud and Hey and Vav and Hey, that you are the God of Rachamim, I will Ahalel, I will praise you, Be'elokim Ahalel. And when I experience your Midas Hadin, a decree which seems to be din, judgment, mishpat, guess what I'm going to do? Ahalel Dava, I'm going to praise you for that word. I'm going to praise you for that decree. So David HaMelech was making no difference between the two. It happens to be that in this world, we give names that Hashem gave us to give, of Yud Kei Vav Kei and Elokim, for different aspects of how we experience HaKadosh Baruch Hu. But as far as Hashem is Echad, which we say every morning and evening to remind ourselves, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad, it's really one. The two are really one. So in that sense, V'zois HaBechina, this connection, Hi Me'ein Olam Haba, making this connection that whatever I experience is, whether it seems to be good or not good, it's actually the same. That is the glimpse of Olam Haba. K'mosh Amru Hachmeinu Zal, as our sages tell us, B'yom Hahu, B'yom Hahu, in that day, it's Gemara Pesachim Daf Nun, as he quotes here, on that day, this is a pasuk in Zechariah, Perek Yudal, pasuk Tes, on that day, Yeh Hashem Echad Ushmo Echad. We're right at the beginning of Torah Dalet. It's on that day that Hashem, He will be one, and His name will be one. So the Gemara famously asks, V'hikshu, they ask, V'chi ha'edna lav echad? What are you saying? Then He'll be one. So that means only then and not now? How can that be? V'tirtzu achmeinu zal, and our sages give the following answer. Ha'edna, now we separate our experiences. So when something good happens, mevarchim ala toiva, we make a bracha for that. Hatoiv, you are the good, v'hametiv, and you do good. Val hara'a, when things are not good, they're bad, we make a different bracha. Dayan emes, you are judge of emes. Emes, the Christian translation is truth. It's not the whole truth. It's not completely true. Emes means reality. It has to be in that, because Aleph is the first letter, Tav is the last, Mem is juxtapositioned exactly in between, in the middle, and therefore Emes actually means reality. Only Hashem is Emes. We say that from a pasuk in Yirmiyahu. We quote it at the end of, when we finish off Kriyat Shema, we actually say Hashem Elokeichem Emes, that He's the only reality. There's no other reality other than Him. It happens to be that within reality, truth is included, but it's not the correct translation. I'm not saying what the nafkamina is at this particular point, but it's a dangerous translation because it limits any translation that's not selected as a reflection of Lashon HaKodesh is a dangerous potential decoy. It can divert the traffic of my mind in a completely different direction, and that's not where we want to go. So Dayan Emes really means that you, Hashem, you are the real judge. Because no human judge, Rabbeinu Yonah brings this, no human judge can give a real psak, because he can't take into consideration the wife and children whose husband now is going to be languishing in jail for life or for 10, 20, 30 years. So who's going to support that? We don't see the justice. Hashem is emes. That means everything has been so perfectly calculated that whoever is affected by a human judge's situation, from the human perspective, it's not emes, but from HaKadosh Baruch Hu's perspective, it's always emes. Ula'atid, and in the future, kuloi ha'tov yametiv. So the meaning of the pasuk is Bayom Hahu, from that day onwards, then we will only make the bracha ha'tov v'hametiv. It will be absolutely clear there was no ra to make a bracha dayan ha'emes on, only tov and metiv. She'iyah Shem Echad, the name Yud Kei Vav Kei, V'Shem Elokim, and the name Elokim, which is the God of judgment, Achdus Echad. It will be united as one. There will be no differentiation, no distinction whatsoever. So that's the first paragraph. We're going to go back to the beginning. Any questions on any of this? Otherwise, we're going to do our best to dive in. Kusha Adam Yodea. Kusha Adam, Kusha, as you know, is a prefix. It means when. So it's talking about a particular time. Kusha Adam Yodea. Yodea is Lashon Hoiver. That means it's happening now. It's not Yada, it's not he knew, and it's not he's going to know. It's Yeda, no, it's happening now. So that means it's similar to what we just said earlier, that Me'ein Olam Haba means a glimpse. It's a quick snapshot, but you're not getting the full picture by any means. Kisha Adam Yodea, when a person knows, Shekol me'oroisav hem l'toivaso. All that happens to him is for his good. So Shekol is a very powerful word because it's telling you everything. It's not 95, 97%, it's not 99%, it's not 99.999%, it's 100%. There's no room for anything else. So that means kuloi taiv means it's 100%, no matter which angle you look at it, no matter what suffering people seem to be experiencing from whatever this me'ora is, it's only good. Shekol me'ora isav, everything that ever happens to him is l'toivasoi. We did look at this word briefly when we first went through this Torah. Me'ora isav is actually a rabbinic term. That means to say it's not Lashon HaKodesh from Tanakh. So Chazal were very careful when they made a word, especially Mishnayos. Mishnayos was written, it's a much easier language than Aramaic for sure, but even Chumash, in many ways it's a lot easier. But when they make a new word, it was not arbitrary. So it's interesting that, let's say, I'll give you two examples. Historia. So you'll find that throughout Midrashim, etc. There's such a word, and it connects to mystery, Hester, and actually it's made up of two words, Hester Ka. Historia is actually not history, it's Hashem hiding. That's what it really means. That Rav Kook had a whole thing with, I think I shared that story with you once, of a meeting with Ben Yehuda, and Ben Yehuda, he wanted to take out tests from the alphabet because it has the same sounding as tet. So he said you can't do that because Historia, they want to change Historia with a tet instead of a taf. He said because Historia is two words, it's Hester Ka. So there's another word, zivug, for example. It's not a biblical term, but the letters are very carefully chosen. The Zion, this is based on the Vilna Gaon in Bava Kama Daf Nun Hey, and it's also the Maharal explains that the letter Zion is actually a male letter. The letter Gimel is a female letter. Zion, the first time it appears in the Torah at the beginning of a word is in the word Zera. So the male, he's responsible for providing the zera from which the child is going to be nurtured in the womb of the mother and eventually become a child and grow. But the mother, she's the gimel, goimel. Gimel is from goimel, and zayin is from lashon zan, which means feed, and it's also a lashon of weapon. So zera is the first word where the letter zayin appears at the beginning, where letter zayin appears at the beginning of a word. So you put all these together, the male is the one that goes out and conquers, feeds his family, uses his weapon, so to speak, to conquer. And Zerah brings the child to the mother for her to then nurture. So Gimel is Goimel, because she takes the Zerah and she gives and gives and gives. The word Goimel, interestingly, has multiple meanings. One of it is Gamal, which means to stop giving. Vayigdal hayeled, Perek Chaf Aleph, by the birth of Yitzhak Avinu, it says Vayigdal hayeled, the child grew, Vayigamal, and she stopped giving milk. She weaned. So the word Goimel means to give, but the same three letters means to stop giving. So the obvious question is, well, how can it be both? And the answer is it is both. Because in Lashon HaKodesh there are no mistakes. The purpose of giving, and all of parenting is in this one word, goimel. The purpose of giving is in order to stop giving. And in order that when the child is able to give to himself, now the child is independent. So the letter Gimel is the female letter, Zayin is the male letter, Vav means hook. That's literally what it means. Vavei ha'amudim in Parshas Truma. That's where the letter Vav first appears at the beginning of a word, and it's not a prefix. It's part of a word. So the letter Vav, interestingly, you probably know how it's shaped in the Torah. It's actually shaped. It's shaped like this, and you can see it's actually got a hook. And Vav means hook. Vav as a prefix means and. When you place a Vav in front of it, and what's an and? And is a connector. It connects what came before to what comes after. So Vav is a hook. So Chazal chose Zayin, Vav, Gimel as the only three letters that could possibly refer to a zivug. Because a zivug is the male that connects to the female, and that is, it's not a biblical term. It's not, you won't find it in any of the Shloshim of Radak or any of the other Rishonim or Rav Hirsch or the Malbim, but it's a rabbinical term. But when they chose letters to combine, there's chokhmah in it, and it follows rules of, if you want to call it lashon hakodesh. So, but the part I want to bring out, why I'm giving you that as a hagdama to Ma'orosav, so we see that there's two words in the word Ma'orosav. There's word and ra'os. There's light and there's evils or bads in plural. So you've got, this word means happen, right? We actually don't even have a real word for happen. Even mikra is adopted as a term for when things happen by accident, but actually there are no accidents. All accidents happen on purpose. A mikra, we know, is actually a combination of rak me Hashem. It only comes from Hashem, and the word kara means call out, and that's why Chazal actually say, it's in Gemara Tainis Daf Zayin, I think it is, ein mikra ela HaKadosh Baruch Hu. There is no mikra, only a HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Shnema mikare b'mayim ali yosav. Hashem makes the ceiling of his world, referring to the rain clouds. B'mayim aliyosav, his attics, the roof of his world is made up of clouds. When you look up at the clouds, you'll see them moving along, and you think, hey, it's just wind randomly flowing the clouds in different directions. No, there's no such thing as different. Every single raindrop has been already predestined of where it's going to fall, and whether it's going to be on soil or the ocean or in a river. Every single raindrop is calculated, and it's all coming from Shamayim over there. So Ha'mekare b'mayim ali yosav is the verse that Chazal are showing you that there's no such thing as mikra. It's everything happens on purpose. So shekol me'orosav, when a person knows that everything that happens to him, whether it's whether it's light, or ra'os, or whether it's the negative stuff, hem l'toivasoi, that is only for his good. This bechina, this connection of making this connection, oh my gosh, it really is for my, it could be better than this. That connection, hi me'ein olam haba. So it's interesting, the word is singular, ra'os is plural. What, is there a reason for that? So I was thinking, there's a pasuk which the Maharsha explains very well in Eicha, Perek Gimel Pasuk Lamed Ches, which says, and we've seen this pasuk a few times. I didn't bring Eicha. Mipi Elyon lo tetzeh haras v'hatoiv. From the mouth of Hashem above, no, the bads and the good don't come out from his mouth. I mean, some actually read it, the Rishonim read it as a rhetorical question. Well, you think it's not, someone else is in charge? No, everything's coming from Hashem's mouth. So you can read it as a rhetorical question, but there it's interesting, ra'os is plural and toiv is singular. So says the Maharsha explaining that when it comes from HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Hashem is only echad. And Hashem is, if you want to call him Ein Sof, then you've got something called Ein Sof. Ein Sof is referring to the infinity of Hashem that you and I have no tfisa on, because it's infinity. Ein Sof, there's no beginning, no end, it's constant. But the Ein Sof, if I'm allowed to say L'havdil, I'm not sure if you have to say L'havdil here, but you have the Shemesh, so that is the source of light locally, but the HaShemesh is what exuding off the sun. So Ein Sof is, so to speak, what all the Isis and the Kud and Nitzotzes in the entire universe is made up of the Ein Sof, and it's filtered through the various spheres, which the word safe mispar is actually, spheres actually means quantity. And we translate it as emanations. It's not a very help. It's a good poetical, but it doesn't grasp. See, when you realize that a sphere is a number, now you understand that the purpose of numbers is to give you quantification, to measure something, because something starts off as immeasurable, but Hashem gives it into this world in measurable levels, so that it's actually a quantity, and that's what math is. Math is not a human language. It was created by Kodesh Baruch Hu. That's brought in Sefer Yetzirah. Belamed based Netivos Chokmah Nivra Ha'olam. 32 paths of wisdom the world was created with, and what are those 32 parts? It's the 22 letters of the Aleph base, and the 10 digits 1 through 9 and 0, which is the spheres, but they're numbers. So in descending order, you got the the spheres, which are quantifications, if you want to call them, of Hashem's presence that comes down all the way down till Malchus, all the way from, so to speak, Keter, the crown, Adam Kadmon, and the original intent that the purpose of creation was he's going to create a man. That's where the lashon of Adam Kadmon comes from, in connection to and association with Keter, so to speak. And right underneath that, then comes Chochmah and Bina, and as we know, we've got Daas, which is not really a sphera, which is the combination of Gvura and Chesed. So Me'oraisav says the Maharsha is that the in Me'oraisav is he's not saying it on this word, he's saying it on Lo Teitzeh Harais V'Hatayv. The Ra'is is from the Sad of the Mekablim. We, on the receiving end of seeing the we don't interpret it as from Hashem. We interpret it, oh, that's not good. Oh, this part of my marriage, it's not working. Oh, this particular kid drives me crazy. Or when this kid does that, drives me crazy. Or this diet is not working. Whenever I set up in my life good, bad, toiv, ra, I have fractured HaKadosh Baruch Hu's manifestation of his into good, bad, ra, toiv. When in reality, it's all 100% toiv. I can't always see it that way. If I get to see it that way, that's a glimpse. That's a glimpse that in that moment a person has I want to call it an inspiration or a moment of incredible insight that what I experienced was actually extremely good, or what I'm experiencing is extremely good. People who've had a moment like that, there's if you want to call it a sense of extraordinary Yishuv Daas amidst the chaos. That a person can be cursed out or be in a position where he gets the worst imaginable news, and somehow or other he's zoicha in that moment. He's got an extraordinary Yishuv Das. His hergeshim, his feelings are not married to what he's just experiencing. They're completely divorced, and the only thing that he has is Hashem's only good. He can't necessarily see why and can't explain why, but that's a glimpse of realizing, wow, it could be that I could experience something that ordinarily should be horrifically painful, and in that same moment, a person feels this serenity, extraordinary sense of Hashem, you're 100% behind this, and therefore there's nothing, zero, for me to be concerned for. So that's a possible explanation in why it's divided up here, because is always constant, but the way we interpret it, that could be multiple different levels of not so good, it could be better, etc. A friend sent a get better card too, so he wasn't actually ill, I just thought he could get better. So, okay. When a person realizes that everything he experiences is really for his good, this connection is me'ein olam haba. It's literally a taste, a foresight, a glimpse of olam haba. It's not really in my notes, but there's something that's come afore in the last, it's probably about 50 years, even though there's recordings of this in writing for a couple of thousand years, and we got it in Chazals as well. But there's such a thing as near-death experiences. They call it NDE, near-death experiences. So it's interesting that in the world of science, it has no, had no, what's the word, content, because you can't prove it. You haven't got any proof. It's not quantifiable. But what's really interesting is that now there is really scientific proof that a lot of scientists are having a hard time with. But there's been so many thousands, and actually it's in millions, but there's thousands and thousands of recorded cases where people physically died. They medically died. In some cases, the death certificate, thank you, was already written out. And then, as he's being rolled to the morgue, the guy under the sheets starts blowing on the sheets, saying, "Oh my gosh, he's back!" And they bring him back in the operating room. They try to give him CPR, etc. So there are thousands and thousands of such cases. One of the pioneers a doctor himself, who braved putting this in writing. Because it's very difficult for the scientific world to accept. They're getting better at this. They're getting much better at it. That if you can't measure something, you can't prove it exists. The scientific world, interestingly, we've mentioned this before, has gone 180 degrees in the opposite direction, because now they admit that what you see is probably not real, and what you don't see is much more real. So, and that we've talked about in terms of the outer space telescopes and then microscopes going into the cell and an atom. The invisible world is much more real than the visible world, which is made up mostly of empty space. The actual matter is a minute percentage of what we actually physically experience. So why is this negay over here? Near-death experiences is very interesting. You've got people that have been recorded by this Dr. Raymond Moody. There's others who've written about it as well. It's a very interesting research where what they describe is first starts with an outer body experience where they see their body on the ground, but they are outside of the body seeing their body. So that's weird. It brings attention to the fact that the HaKadosh Baruch Hu made the word panim, which means faces, very interesting, because you never ever get to see your face. You never see it. Your face is changing all the time. That's why there's no word for face in Lashon HaKodesh. It's only panim in plural. That's the first radak in Sefer Yeshua, Perek Aleph, Pasuk Aleph. He gives you a short list there of a number of words in Lashon HaKodesh that are only plural and never turn up in singular. Panim is one of them, face is. So it's interesting that your face you never get to see in your lifetime, ever. The most you'll ever see is a reflection, maybe a photo or in the mirror, but you actually never get to see your face. What's my face doing on the floor? You never get to see your face. If you never get to see your face, then who is it created for?
Others.
Everyone else. Oh, interesting. Oh, so a person's face is created for everybody else. So now the first experience they have is they see their body on the ground, and they're above it, and they say, "That's weird. What am I doing down there?" And then they, not always, but very often, they start wandering around in this out-of-body state where they try to reassure their mother, who's in the waiting room to hear if the surgery was successful, to reassure her that the person who the doctor's about to tell has died. It's not true. I'm okay. I'm fine. But when they try to get mum's attention and put their hand on the shoulder and tap her, the hand goes right through the shoulder of the mother. Something's wrong over here. Then they start exploring in the hospital. They start noticing things are going on. When they do come back, I'm missing a few stages. I'll touch on it in a moment. But when they do come back, they can prove that they had an out-of-body experience, because after they were medically certified as dead, they heard the conversations that were going on and could repeat word for word. And many times they would tell them the specific I don't know what to call them, the not tools that they use for the operation, implements, medical implements that were being used, and the conversation that they're having with the nurses while they're doing the surgery. It's there's no way they could have known that if they were dead, unless it's a different stage of death. But obviously they hadn't 100% died, even though medically speaking, there's no brain activity, the heart stopped, and there's no breathing. So. In one particular case, a person told the doctor, "If you don't believe me, go on the second floor to room 102 and go open up the window, and you'll see on the windowsill there's a shoe of the 2-year-old who's in that room that somehow found its way there." And so there's no way they can have this information if not that they actually were outside of their body. What happens next is they get sucked into a tunnel, a long light, big bright light. They've never seen anything. They can't describe how bright it is. And then at the end of the tunnel, while they're going through the tunnel, they meet people who've died, mostly of relatives, and there's a very, very powerful sense of acceptance and love and no judgment. And they feel very, very, very secure in this tunnel. Then at the end of the tunnel, something very odd happens. They're told to look in a particular part of a large room, and there they see a baby being born, and it's them. And then they see their entire life from the moment they were born till they died, and it unfolds in real time. And they experience every physical interface with a concrete floor or anything they touch. And every conversation, they not only hear the conversation, they experience the pleasure the other person had when this person who just died said something kind to them. This could have been 10, 15, 20 years ago. And they experience the pain that person experiences when we say unkind words to them. What ends up happening after that, they're brought to trial, so to speak, and they're told it's not your time. You have to go back. And most of them agree. They respect that suck, so to speak. And some of them are begging, and they have to be literally dragged. In spiritual terms, they say they were dragged screaming. They did not want to go back. No matter how good that world was, this world, the joy and pleasure of that was so extraordinary. So they got a glimpse. I don't think it was Olam Haba yet, but they got a glimpse of afterlife. And even Shlomo Melech uses the lashon of Perek Zayin, I think it is, in Koheles. Tov Shem Shem and Tov. A good name is something you can't replace. It's its own currency. So Shem Tov is extraordinarily great virtue to gain a reputation of Bein Adam L'Chaveira, Bein Adam L'Makam, and Bein Adam L'Atzmai, to be a good person. Shem Tov, that's very, very precious. Tov Shem, Mishem and Tov. It's a play on the words. A good name is better, superior to Shem and Tov. Shem and Tov is oil that is good. Good oil has medicinal qualities, and it's got the power of giving energy and light. It can be used for fire, for fuel. There's a lot of good things that comes from oil. Tov Shem Mishem and Tov. It's a huge difference between the two. But Yom HaMaves, the day of death, is way superior. I mean, Yom HaValadai, from the day the person's born. So the famous, I don't remember the author of Gesher HaChaim. It's a brilliant title. Gesher is a bridge, HaChaim of the lives, because it's the bridge between Olam Hazeh and Olam Haba. So it's a book on mourning, but it's also a book on how to help people grieving. And he's the one who gave the famous mashal of twins in the womb of a mother, which I think was turned into a song.
A.B. Rottenberg?
Yeah, A.B. Rottenberg, that's the one. Of twins in the womb of its mother, and they're having a machlekes. So the Hacham says, "Oh, this life is so good. We don't have to go for our parnasa. It's fed directly into our umbilical cord, and everything is so warm, perfect temperature, insulation, protection. This is awesome." And the Tam of the twins says, "Look, I'm going to tell you the real truth is this is a temporary world, and beyond this world, our eyes are going to open up, and we're going to see in 3D in full color, and then our legs will unfold, and we'll actually be mobile. We'll carry our own bodies. Our hands will interface with the world." And the Hacham is telling me, "You've been watching too many videos. You got to get off the internet. Your imagination's going way wild." So I said, "No, it's really true." And then suddenly the womb begins to shake, and the tum is sucked out, and the Hacham screaming, "No, don't go, no!" Oh, and he's crying because he's lost his brother, not knowing that the screams on the other side is, "Mazel tov, it's a boy." So the world, Miyom Valadai, the world that you're born into, is a physical world. This planet is huge. It's beyond huge. And the universe that contains planet Earth is a magnitude that's way beyond any hasaga, ability to grasp the miles between. It's called light years. They can't even call it miles because the numbers are too great. So the extent of how far you can travel at the speed of light, 186,000 miles per second, for a minute, that's 60 times 186,000 miles. That's 1 minute. Now times that by 60 for an hour, times that by 365, so that's called a light year. The distance that one would travel, which is just under, I think, 6 trillion miles in one light year. That's how. Those are the numbers that they've got to use in order to give us some sort of a grasp. But Yom HaMaves, When the bodies return to the ground, but the neshama goes back to Hashem, miyom yivalda, that is beyond, way more than the world that the baby enters for 120 years. That world of Olam Haba is way beyond that. So what we're talking here is only a glimpse. Olam Haba itself, Ain lo yirasa, no human being ever saw it who was alive, Zulas, except for Kadosh Baruch Hu himself, and those who are mechakim, they're anticipating and waiting for when they leave this world. So just I want to end this point about near-death experiences. So interesting. A number of these people attempted to commit suicide and failed. The ones who failed, who had an out-of-body experience, never tried committing suicide again. Those who had attempted suicide and failed, but did not have an out-of-body experience, many of them did. It was a very high percentage. And when asked the people who never tried again, why didn't you ever try again? Their answer was very, very interesting. They said, we realize that this world is only preparation for a much greater existence, and we so respect the process that we've been put here for a reason that we will not interfere with that. And every single one of them is also, they lose their fear for death. Gone. Because they've been on the other side, lefi Daas, some of what they experienced. I don't think they got to Yom Adin of any real magnitude, but it was just an initial process to decide whether they are staying and then go through the real Yom Adin, or they're going to go back. So obviously they all went back. But what's really interesting is how they all lost their fear of death. One person described that he was in the middle of a terrorist attack after he already had a near-death experience, and everybody in the restaurant, in a split second, went down on the floor as bullets were flying, and he stood there. He said, if it's his time, he's ready. He has no hesitation that where he's going to go is much better than down here. So it was a very interesting, and I'm going to close on this particular point. I have a personal friend who was a Talmud of mine in Gibraltar. We learnt Hilchas Basum Chalav together. His name is Mo Garson. I'm pretty sure I'm allowed to say his name because it was he plastered his clip on WhatsApp. During COVID, he had COVID badly, and he was brought into the Royal Free Hospital in London. And the doctor, while he's being wheeled in, told him that so far 23 people have entered this ward, and 23 people have left and they're in the morgue. And you're the 24th. So Mo Garson went like this, and he said to the doctor's face, it's not up to you. Like, Hashem decides these things. It's like Rabbeinu Zal says, a doctor's allowed to give a diagnosis, but not allowed to give you yish. He's got reshus to be merape. He hasn't got reshus to inject yish in a person. So it ends up that he survived, and when he was when he came out of hospital, he described the 3 days he was in a coma, how he was brought to the based in Shalmala, and they were going through his deeds, and he said it was the most frightening thing he could ever imagine, what they were judging him for on every detail. And the mitzvahs were piling up, especially Hachnasas Orchim, which he was very well known for, especially in Gibraltar. He loved bringing guests because there's a lot of tourists that come through Gibraltar, and they're all from in Gibraltar. There's 3 shuls on Shabbos, 1 during the week, and so it's easy if a person needs a minyan, it's fantastic. All Sfardim there, except a few Ashkenazim who married the Sfardim there, but otherwise it's a beautiful place to be. And so he's describing how he would have guests, and on the scales in Shemayim they were piling on all the mitzvahs he got from Achnasas Orchim, and then it was looking really good until he said it was a black malach came and wiped it all off and said this had nothing to do with him. This is all the schus of his wife. She's the one who went shopping and carried all the stuff and chose and brought it into the house, put it into the larder, and then took it out and cooked it, laid the table. He just brought the guests, so there's very little bit left on the scale for bringing the guests, but she did all the work. So he thought now he's in real big trouble, and he said he cannot fathom the trepidation. And then one of the Dayanim, there were 3 Dayanim, one of them says, "What's your name?" So he said his Hebrew name. He said, did you publish a sefer? And he named the sefer. I don't remember it. And said yes. And so the Dayan stood up and said, "That's my sefer. He published it after I passed away. I can't judge him. So I'm impossible to give Dayan to be done him, to judge him." And it turned out he had done something in the schus of another tzaddik who was a second of three. And now two of the Dayanim stood up and said they can't. So they said, "Okay, you can go back." So they sent him back, and he said there's a lot more he wants to share. He doesn't have the character to share it. Weeks later, I called him up to ask him what was the rest. He said he sent a shaliach to Reb Chaim Kanievsky of blessed memory to tell him what else he saw, and he wanted permission to share it, and he told him we're not allowed to share it, so he didn't. So I don't know what else that he would have shared, but suffice to say that there's such a thing as a glimpse of Olam Haba. Sometimes a person experiences it in this world, but sometimes a person might actually die medically and glimpse it and then come back. But there's a big problem in that, because it really changes the way they look at the world. It's good, but it's bad, because the Yetzer Hara is dampened hugely not to fear death. So a person has to work even harder, I think, to be strong in mitzvahs, because the Bechira has been, you can't unexperience what you experience. If you experience a glimpse of Olam HaEmes, so it changes. Every single guy that went through this, they all describe how they realized that coming back into this world was a second chance, because whatever they had done before didn't count. And some of them were very accomplished, but they saw that what they accomplished in business was meaningless in Shemayim, because everything they got in business was from Shemayim. So it wasn't their effort. There's nothing to reward them for. So when they came back into this world, they said they call it panoramic view of life. When they experienced seeing their life in real time, and they said it took a split second. They experienced every single second of their whole life, but it took only a second. We know there's no Zman in Olam HaEmes, but one of the things that was very pronounced is this sense of, when I cause pain to another person, it is so tragic in how much of a unfolding it could have in causing pain to other people, that it made it much harder for them to be so insensitive. And now they worked on relationships, and most of them went into some sort of area of chesed. It's very, very interesting. A lot of these people were followed up for up to 30 years. This Raymond Moody, Dr. Raymond Moody, he followed up with them for 30 years, and he saw from re-interviewing them and from friends and relatives, they hadn't changed. That their experience of dying was as vivid as when it happened. So I want to share with you in Chaimuran in 486. I've got one copy there. I think there might be a couple of others around. It's just like two-liner. We said in the first line, Kirsh Adam Yodea, when a person knows. It's Sikha 486, Taf Pei Vav. Yeah, in Chaimuran. So we said Kirsh Adam Yodea. That means when a person knows. So it doesn't necessarily imply that this is an ongoing hasaga. It could be that a person gets it only glimpses. So it says, have you got the place? 486? Chaimuran. 46, Taf Pei Vav.
Taf Pei Vav is another.
Something else? Ama, he says, Ha'olam haba, sheyesh lanu b'zeh ha'olam, the olam haba that we can have in this world, k'shahashem yitbarach oizer, when Hashem helps, lif'amim, sometimes, that means it's not it's not necessarily ongoing, ein l'shayah, it's impossible to measure. You can't measure what it feels or to describe what it is when a person in this world can actually get a sense of olam haba. I don't know, I'm just throwing it out. If you ever want to share in any of the classes, if you ever had such a moment in your life where you got this sense that everything is good, and actually if you took a photo and an audio of what's going on, it's all chaos, and not nice things are happening, and not nice things are being said, and there's this sense of 100% serenity. Hashem, you can do no wrong. I know this is good. I can't explain why. There's nothing about it that you could logically claim this makes sense. And yet, for some odd reason, Hashem allows that the neshama gets, if you want to call it, a glimpse that I'm with you, there's nothing to fear. I want to bring attention, in the 5 minutes left, I'm going to share with you Reish Nun in Likutim Moran. You have a large one in front of you. It's very much negate to the part of the Torah that we've learned so far, because all has to do, what we're going to see is Yodea, it's all has to do with Daas. Da, have you got the place, Reish Nun? Yeah? Da. No. Shekol minei tsar. All types of tsar. Kol means everything. All. There's no, every imaginable type of tsar, of pain. V'chol ha'yisurim. And all suffering. Ein amrak mechesron hadas. Can only be because the mind is missing something. The mind doesn't have the full picture. Ki mi sheyesh lo das. If a person does have Daas, v'yodea, it's the same notion as we said before, and in the moment, he knows, sha'kol b'hashgacha me'Hashem yitbarach, that what's happening is 100% supervised by Hashem. It's not the person who's cursing me out, or hurting me with words, or the bad news that this company is folding, and my investment is completely gone, I'll never see it again. It's not, it's all of that. Ein loy shum yisurin. If he's got real das, he's not suffering at all. The einu margish shum tsar. He doesn't even have a sense, a feeling. There's no emotion of tsar. Ki Hashem natan Hashem lakach. So he's quoting a pasuk from Eiv, which is in Perek Aleph, pasuk Chaf Aleph. It's a famous pasuk that Eiv, he lost all his children, literally in a very short period of time. It seems like probably in the space of a few hours. And in the same time that he was given the news of all his children dying, he lost all his wealth, was gone. And this all happened in a few sentences. So, in Eiv, Perek Aleph, he famously answers, V'yomer, he fell on the floor and prostrated himself like it, pulled his hair out of his head. It was real suffering. And he said the following, V'yomer, Araim yasati Nibeten imi. I left the womb of my mother naked. The Arim Ashuv Shama. I'm going to return to the womb naked. Here, the womb is not referring to his mother's womb; it's referring to the womb of Mother Earth, so to speak, which is the Keva. That's all the Mepharshim explain. Hashem Natan. Hashem gave. Lashon Matana. It was not owed to me. Life was not owed to me. V'Hashem lakach, and he took. He gave me my children. He took them. They were his in the first place. I wasn't owed my children. Yehi Shem Hashem mevarach. May the name of Hashem be blessed. That's extraordinary. So that was Eiv. He refused to look at what he experienced as bad. He only wanted to praise Hashem for it. Even though the pasuk before says he fell on the floor and pulled his hair out of his head, it was just unbearable news. But that was his gut immediate reaction. But as soon as he had any composure, what came out of his mouth? God, Your Majesty, you can do no wrong.
Uses the shame Hashem for both. So
yes.
Same with the Sarachmim Nasa.
Oh,
same,
very good.
The Sarachmim is Lakach, right?
Yes. Yishem Hashem Yud Kei Vav Kei Mevorach. So that's the pasuk that Rav Nachman is quoting here. The Afal Pi, and even though Sheyesh Yisurin, there are certain sufferings Shebehechrach Margishim Oisam, that a person can't help but feel them. I'm not going to finish this whole piece. We'll just do some of it and then continue next week. For example, for example, the suffering that comes because of the fact that the body and soul have been fused together. They've been together for 60, 70, 80 years, whatever it is. And now, after this fusion of the body and soul being so used to being together, the soul is being removed from the body. Or another example, it says that is very, very, very painful. The Gemara in Yuma, Daf Chaf, I think it is, tells us that when the neshama leaves the body, the scream is so horrifying, it can be heard from one end of the earth to the other, one end of the world to the other, when the soul comes out. Or for example, the pain of someone who's ill. When a person gets ill, it can sometimes be the neshama slowly leaving the body, and it's painful. Because the combination of the soul and the body have been so fused together for so long, so obviously the person is going to feel the pain of the departure. But nevertheless, this pain is extremely easy and restful.
Pleasant.
What? Pleasant. Lihis kabel is in reflexive, which means he's accepting it upon himself. The ace at the moment yodea, that he knows b'das barur, with absolute clarity, shahakol b'hashgacha Hashem yisbarach. He's not afraid because he knows it's all under perfect supervision. That's part of why I wanted to share with you those examples of the near-death experiences where people in this world have experienced it and it's been recorded. But you can actually hear recordings of these people. It's really, the first 2 times I heard it, I couldn't help break down uncontrollable tears. I shouldn't have, because I should have a munah that, of course, there's another dimension. But when you hear people talking about coming back and then being interviewed with questions, and it's like horrific. Oh my gosh, it really is real. How much more so other types of pain, of yisurim and suffering, when that a person doesn't feel at all, when he has the das that we're describing above. The main pain from suffering is because the das has been removed from him in order for him to actually experience the yisurim. We'll continue this next week. There's a lot of Torahs about Das and how this, and he quotes Chazals all over the place. The Das is everything. The Das is asking us to shoot for is the Das to know that everything's good all the time. It starts off kasha, only when a person yodea in a moment knows it. But we're going to see that really the real goal is to increase those glimpses to the point where a person will not be fooled by this world into thinking there's good and there's bad. And sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad. Hashem does not want us really he wants us to live a life that's only good. And that's what Rav Nachman, I think, is pointing to. Any questions?
So now we believe it and eventually we'll know it.
Yes.
It says l'tovasa, does that mean that there's going to be a good tayelas out of it? But excellent. It's not a good experience, but something good will come out of it, or gamzu l'tova.
It's 100% the latter. It's a very fair question, because b'shas ma'isa, I can't necessarily see at all how this is going to be good. But you're right, l'tovasai, the lamed before the word toiv is telling me it's going in that direction. So gamzu l'tova,
eventual good,
is also an expression that even if I can't say why this is now good, but l'tova is going to be. And the same with called Avid Ramachal Latav Avid, and the same with Sarei Menu Perek Chaf Gimel Pasuk Aleph, where Rashi tells us, why does it say Vayiyu Chaye Sarah Mea Shanim Sheva Shanim Vayiyu Chaye Sarah Mea Shanim the Esim Shana Shiva Shanim Shnei Chaye Sarah. So Rashi has a couple of pshatim there. One of them is Kulam Shavim L'Taiva. They were all for the good. So she lived a life where if she couldn't see it now, she would not second guess God. He was 100% perfect in his justice, and there were no questions. And that's how she died. She died on that with that thought. That was the Chidazal on that pasuk. Says she died with that thought, that even though she knew now Yishmael might be the one, after all she worked for Yitzhak, and now he's going to be Yerush. She perished that thought in a split second. Said, Hashem, you're only good. Kulan is 100%. It's not 99.9.
So is this maybe a chiluk between Olam Hazeh, where we could reach a madrega of saying that it could be l'toiva, but l'sadlaba we will actually see the toiva.
Yeah, that's correct. That's the Bayem Mahu Yeshem Echad. You're 100% accurate. Yeah, the bracha that we'll make then is hatoiv and mitiv, and I think it's the Marsha who says it, that that we'll now say the bracha Hatov Meitiv on all the times we said Dayan Emes, or would have not said Hatov Meitiv. Now we realize it was actually B'tachlis HaGud. So you're 100% correct. It's not. I may be suffering now, and I can't see the good. So I do my best to train my mind to. Le'olam yihei Adam Ragil Loima Kol Da'avid Rahman El Tav Abid. So it's a training. So it's a sif in Shulchan Aruch. Reish Lam, I think Reish Lamed Sif Hey. Le'olam yihei Adam Ragil Loima Kol Da'avid Rahman El Tav Abid. So he's going to quote it from the Gemara Brachos later on. But in the moment I may not be able to say that. But the example that's given that we get. This expression, which is halachically paskand, le'olam yihadam ragil loima kol David Rahman el-tav is taken from that story with Rabbi Akiva, who said it was good each time, even that Hashem's only good, even though he couldn't necessarily put all the dots together and see how it was really good. But after it ended, and it was really bandits who if they had seen the light or the braying of the donkey or the rooster cockadoodle doing, he would have been one of the captives. So when he got back to the best medrash, he gave this as a raya, how you have to say whatever you do, Hashem is perfectly good, l'tayv, because look, in the end it was. So this was a very good example where every single nakuda, the rooster being attacked and killed, the donkey being devoured by a lion and a wildcat, and the wind blowing out the light. All this was a perfectly calculated l'toiva.
I once saw the question is that if the Eibush is kulei toiv, then just do everything that openly good. So I saw it in Chok brings the Zohar, and it says that why does Hashem bring rains, the biggest gift, in dark clouds? Is because the Makatrik says they don't deserve such a matana. Hashem says I have to put it into a box and put the gift into a gift box in a way that the Makatrik shouldn't stop it. So I'll put it into a dark cloud. It looks like it's nasty,
right? And
I'll give them the gift. Sometimes the Ma'ira Taka looks very bad, but it's really a gift from Hashem. Why does he have to be malbush it this way so that the Makatrik shouldn't hold it back from giving us this gift?
Excellent.
So I'm thinking
yeah.
that.
So the dark clouds are actually for our benefit.
For our benefit.
Yeah.
Okay. Can I just ask a question? I think what you just said and this are a little bit of a conflict, because my understanding is Gamzul Tovo is kind of saying it's a physical reality. It's like we're going to see that even the physical things in the world, when Hashem reveals at the end of days, we'll see all physical reality. There was no punishment, so everything was good.
Right.
But I think what you said is something different, which is that the reason we feel pain is because of absence of das. So forget about Gamzul Tovo.
Right.
Is that I feel pain or things are bad. And we're saying all physical reality is meaningless. So business is meaningless, money is meaningless, pleasure is meaningless. So as we feel pain because of absence of das, I think that's a different topic from Gamzul Tovo.
Yeah.
Because all of this stuff is completely meaningless.
Right.
So when you have das, there's not even a question.
Right.
That's different from Gamzul Tovo.
Yes. You're not even going to feel the pain.
Yeah,
I do believe that Nachum. Sorry.
Just the pain doesn't mean anything.
Right.
It's not. It's physical. What difference does it make?
I do believe that Nachum Ish Gamzu had reached a point where it made no difference what happened. He would react the same way, and it'd be real for him. And that's why he had to be tested, because he was a shaliach for the whole of Am Yisrael, sent to Rome, b'shlichus of the Chachamim, who knew that he was melumad b'nisim, and he brought a chest of soil instead of a chest of. And his gut reaction when the chest was opened up, and it's not a treasure chest, is Gamzul Taiva. And when the Caesar was enraged and gave a psak off with the head with we can kill Nachum Ish Gamzu and anyone else who came with him, and not only are we not rescinding the gezeras which Nachum Ish Gamzu came to appease the Caesar for, we're going to make it much worse for them. His gut reaction was Gamzul Taiva. So any of us would say this is insane, makes no sense. But he knew God can make no mistakes, and so it had to be good. So some say that because he refused to accept it as mikra, as teva, the world works with Teva. People get angry when they're insulted. He was insulted by a chest of soil, of dirt, so he didn't see any difference. It was for him it was 100% hashgacha pratis. Teva is 100% hashgacha pratis, and therefore it has to be good. So he created the situation where Hashem sent Eliyahu Navi in the guise of one of the ministers and told Caesar, the Jews are not so stupid. They got all these Nobel prizes. There must be something. Maybe this dirt is from their forefather Avram Avinu, and check it out. So Caesar said, you got a good point. How stupid could the Jews be to bring me a chest of soil? So Ted tested out in Kachaya. But how did that come about? That was from his gamzu. He refused to accept that Hashem would do anything wrong. And that's really the machlokes that we're discussing. I think you'll bring up is the machlokes. Do I accept this as teva? This person has a bad midah, and I'm on the receiving end of that bad midah. Or is this hashgacha pratis, where Hashem wants me to dig in a bit deeper with more savlanas, understanding, listening, empathy, and maybe even admiration for the struggles that person has, and help them turn themselves around, because my reaction is different to defending and attacking back and bringing out my list of crimes they committed against me. So Nachum Ish Gamzu, he refused to make such a chiluk. Teva hashgacha. No, it's all hashgacha.
No, I give you another example. So the Gemara says, I think it was that there was a cow that was sick and he had a big taina, and Eliyahu showed him that if the cow was really sick,
right,
if the cow had stayed alive, the whole family would be dead.
Yeah.
So the issue that I'm saying is that's the idea of Gamzul Tova, is that there's a physical reconciliation. But I think what you're saying is actually deeper than that. Is that even if there's no physical reconciliation, it's an absence of, forget about this physical world.
You're correct. I'm not saying that's what the Torah
Even with no physical reconciliation, even without Gamzul Tova, it's just an absence of Daas. It doesn't matter what's in this world.
So the Gamzul Tova is born from that Daas.
Gamzul Tova is assumption that there's a physical reconciliation. This is different, which is we're saying it's all good, even if there's no physical reconciliation, it just doesn't matter.
Because the true Daas doesn't.
Even if I'm suffering and I'm just suffering, that's what it is. I don't know what it is. My neshama needed that suffering. There's no justification. That's what I'm saying. It's deeper. The Gamzul Tova says, at the end, we're going to see that the suffering had a purpose. And I think what we're saying here is, Daas has nothing to do with physicality. Maybe we need suffering, no purpose. I don't know. With Daas, it's all good. It doesn't have to be a reconciliation that it's good.
I think it's important to both. There's a place for both of them. Both of these things.
They're different.
Why? Because I could be at the Madriga of Daas, but the people around me are not. So what happens is that they have this kasha of tzaddik around. And tzaddik himself is like, everything is good, But the people around says, hey, why is he suffering? What is that? So there is a place to show them that you could reconcile this.
No, I saw an interesting thing that I saw a very interesting thing that said that at a communal level, that's the answer to Tzaddik Rabba, is that at a communal level, it must be. You can't say that Chas v'Shalom, millions of people are nifter for no purpose. But at an individual level, we can't necessarily answer that question. You know what I'm saying? So when you look at the big things in history, it has a purpose. But to say, I need a cheshbon, this happened to me. I mean, there's a madrega to say, I stubbed my toe, it's a kapara of others. But, it doesn't have to. It's like, there can be something, we don't have to see that reconciliation at an individual level.
Yes, next week we're back to 10 a.m. in
Yes, thank you. Thank you for
accommodating.
accommodating.
Rabbi, thank you.
Over to you.
I don't know,